Hi, my name is Bamdad, and I'm a developer here at AG Grid, and in this video, I'm going to be running you through valueFormatters, one of the most sought after features of our grid. Okay, so before I start, if you came here from my articles, welcome, thank you for reading. And if you're here from anywhere else, be sure to check out the articles for a more in-depth explanation of what's going on. So a quick explanation of valueFormatters is that they're a tool that's most commonly used to make data on a grid more human readable. So this might be putting commas after every third digit in a number to make it easier to tell hundreds of millions from billions, or formatting dates to a given locality. Basically, you're not changing the underlying data, you're just changing how it looks for users. Okay, so let's begin. In this plunker, I've got 4 pairs of columns. Each pair is built from the same underlying data. The first column of each pair is raw and unformatted, and the second column for each pairing is the same data but formatted with a valueFormatter. In each pairing, I'll be focusing on a different type of formatting, going from simple inline formatters to complex external functions and showing you how valueFormatters work with other AG Grid features like filtering and sorting. So let's begin with the numbers column. Here we can see a decimal number that's 6 digits long. For our first valueFormatter, I'm going to be using an arrow function, which takes params from each node, within which we'll find the data. Then, using the JavaScript toFixed method, I'm going to chop off the 2 digits from the tail, thus giving me a nicely rounded number to 2 decimal places. The next pair of columns contains string data. For the string formatted column, I'll be capitalizing the first letter of each string. This time, I'll be passing the valueFormatter a reference to a formatting function that I've declared elsewhere. If we take a quick look at this function, we can see that the value to be formatted is again extracted from params. Note that this time I'm using params.value. This works the same as params.data.string. It's just a shallower way of extracting what's inside a cell. Then, with a bit of JavaScript, I'm slicing off the first character and capitalizing it before returning the first character and the sliced string to the cell. Another thing to note here is the filter params, where I'm passing the same function again as a valueFormatter to the filter. This means that the text shown in the filter dialog box is also capitalized, as you can see here. Now let's up the ante a little bit and pass our valueFormatter some parameters. The currency formatted column adds a currency symbol, in this case dollars. It also adds an apostrophe, so we know we're in the tens of thousands. Lastly, it removes the digits after the decimal point, because let's face it, if you're paying this much money for an apple, you're not sweating the small stuff. This time, I'm passing the valueFormatter an arrow function, as well as an external function which is actually doing the formatting. This is so I can minimize the code on the external formatting function side and just provide it with a number. Otherwise, I'd have to pass in the params object and extract the value like I did for the string formatter. The arrow function calls the currency formatter and gives it the value as well as the dollar symbol. If we look at the currency formatter now, we can see what's going on. First, I'm trimming off the decimal tail. Now, the caveat to using the toFixed method is that it turns your numbers into strings. Luckily, this apostrophe formatting code I found on Stack Overflow works with strings, so my next step is a breeze. Lastly, I'm returning the sign followed by the formatted string, and that's how I'm getting my formatted currency. Now, you'll notice that there's also some filtering code included here, which I explained in my first article. And as it's not valueFormatted specific, I'll leave it out of this video. Now let's tackle the big one, dates. So in this grid, my underlying date data is provided as a string. I chose to present this example this way as it allows me to show you how I convert it into a JavaScript date object to benefit from AG Grid's built-in date object management systems. So on our grid, we have how people in the UK do dates, day, month, year, separated by forward slashes. The formatted version of this data happens also via an external function, where the string is split around each forward slash and reconstituted in a template string, where the slashes are replaced with dashes. So that was pretty simple. Now let's talk about filtering and sorting. As you can see when I click the date formatted column header, the dates are being chronologically sorted. Also, when I use the floating filter to type in a date, I'm getting filtered dates. Now this doesn't work just off the back of strings. For each of these, there's a comparator and a process. So let's do sorting first. You'll note that under the value formatter, there is a comparator. This is for sorting. If we look at the code for this comparator, we can see standard comparison setup. In fact, this is taken from another example in our documentation. This comparator uses a helper function to turn each string into a number. Then these numbers are compared to one another, and that's how we get our sorting comparisons. Now let's do filtering. So you'll notice here that we're declaring another comparator. This is because this time we're after exact matches. Whilst we could use a modified version of the previous comparator, I'm instead going to do it this way so I can show you how I convert these strings into JavaScript date objects. Once again, we're splitting the underlying data just as before, but this time we're creating a date object using new date. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be using AG Grid's provided date management systems. In this case, AG date column filter. This allows us to do straight date comparisons, as whatever's input into the filter will be turned into a date, and then we can use it for comparisons with the date that our comparator has generated. So here we have our cell values, our filter values, and a mechanism to compare them. And that's how we achieve date filtering with strings and value formatters. I hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions or want to see any more videos in future, let us know what you're after. Maybe we'll make them.